Hey there y'all, Mondo here once again to bring you a new video. This one's going to be a bit different. This is just going to be a video of me talking about some records that I really enjoy. Well, not separate records, but records by one single band. The band today we're going to be talking about is called Big Black, which is a band made by Steve Albini in the early 1980s that came out of the whole Chicago punk scene and really were actually a pretty influential band. Now, I don't think Steve Albini needs any introduction really, but if you don't know, Steve Albini is the leader of audio engineering. I can't remember the name. I think Audio Electric is what it's called. His producing company in Chicago. But he's also been a musician for many years, involved with Wax Trax, Touch and Go Records, Homestead Records. You know, he's been all over the place essentially. But most people know Steve Albini for being the producer for Nirvana's In Utero. And that was his big break, really. But that was in the mid-90s. That was in the early 90s, like after Big Black had already been broken up. So this was Albini's band. He had a few other bands after that, most notably Shellac, which got a bit of success. And I believe Shellac is still somewhat around. I don't know. Albini doesn't really play music anymore. He just produces. And Big Black has, been inactive since 2006. The last time they ever played a live show was 2006. For the 25th anniversary of Touch and Go Records. But officially, Big Black has been broken up since 1987, right before their last record came out. So I thought it'd be interesting to take a look. One of the only bands I own a good chunk of their discography on vinyl. All of their major releases. There's a few singles that I'm missing that are very minute and, maxi singles and stuff like that. But I thought we'd just take a look at the stuff I have in the collection right now. I've got it all in a pile next to me, so we're going to be going over everything in chronological order, including some 45s that I've got and all the EPs. Now, before we get into this, Big Black only made 2 official albums. We have both here, but mostly Big Black released EPs. EPs was their forte, essentially. So I've got them all in a pile here. We're going to start going over them. Now, only one of these is an original press. The rest are the recent reissues that they put out, which all sound gorgeous because they're actually remastered by Albini himself, so they are as pure as you can get. So, let's start taking a look at those now. First record we have is the debut EP called Lungs. This was released by Albini basically solo. This was 1981 or 1982. I want to say it was 1981. It doesn't have the date on the back, but this is a 6-track EP. There's Albini himself. Sure, Lungs, Big Black. All these are on black vinyl except for one of them. But yeah. Now I wasn't a big fan of this record for a while, because it is pretty, even Albini himself is not a huge fan of this album for the fact that he just did it himself and he didn't feel like the sound was layered enough, and he said it sounded too simplistic, too menial, I guess you could say. And he wasn't really happy with it. And for a long time I wasn't a huge fan of this record either, because it sounds a bit chintzy to me and really underproduced. But I've really grown to appreciate it for what it is, being, the first of its kind. Now, there was no other musicians on this record besides these 2 gentlemen who only did occasional things on it. John Bonin, who did saxophone on Live in a Hole, and Mark Hayes, who apparently just yelled on the song Dead Billy. So everything else on this record was done by Albini. Bass, guitar, the drum programming, because this was Albini first using a drum machine, and, it was a Roland at the time, which is what he would continue to use. But Albini recorded this mainly in his college dorm room, because he was at college at the time, and that's, really does have that feel of being some low-end, independently made record. So you can really appreciate it for that sense, and it is a really good example of DIY, And, this is a really good pressing, and the songs have grown on me. I think the only song I'm not huge on is Dead Billy. This version of Dead Billy. I love all the other versions, the John Peel version and the live version that we'll talk about later. But, Live in a Hole is great. The original version of Steelworker, which is still a very good version of the song. But, yeah. This is one of the last records I picked up, actually. They had it for years at one of my local record shops. If you're in the DFW area, you know about Forever Young Records. They had this in that stack forever, and I just now got it. This one's also a recent reissue. Kind of regret taking all the cellophane off these. Most of them, I took all the cellophane off. I don't know if I took it off of Songs About, but we'll get to that. Because they all came with a sticker as well, saying all remastered by Albini and Audio Engineering. Yeah. If you were uncertain about this record, I'd go back and check it out. You know, it's a decent start. It walked so the rest of Big Black could run, essentially. But put that one to the side for now. The next record is where Big Black really started to form, and that is this album, Bulldozer. This gave birth to a lot of hits by Big Black. This was also the first Big Black record I ever owned. And this one I actually did a video on, I believe like 2 years ago or something like that. But, you know, this album still does have a very, you know, special connotation with me, especially because I got signed by Jeff Pezzati of Naked Raygun and, of course, early Big Black. He was the bass player for this record. This was the first Big Black album to have actual 4 musicians on it, and the only one to have 4 musicians on it. And even then, there's still use of drum machine and layered drums with a live drum track. But for the most part, it is live drums, actually, by Pat Byrne. Pat Byrne played drums on this. And this was also the introduction of, for the rest of this, collaborator Santiago Durango from Naked Raygun, who would play guitar for Big Black up until the very end. As you can see, I got more stuff written by Pezzati. Drew a little flame in the lighter there, and also on the firecrackers he wrote "Light It." So that's pretty cool. He just basically drew on the record, but I have no complaint about that. Also, this one comes with a poster. One of the only Big Black records that come with a poster. This is a great reissue, though. This game gave birth to a bunch of classic Big Black tracks. Pigeon Kill, Cables, you know. There's also some, you know, like Jumping the Way and all that, you know. There's a lot of underrated tracks on this record, but it's fantastic. This is like the most punk Big Black record there is out there, in my opinion. It sounds a little bit different than the rest of the stuff. It sounds less electronic because they actually have live drums, so they just sound more like a full-blown punk band. It sounds a lot like a band jamming together, with some added effects afterwards on some of the songs, like Jump the Climb and all that. And what was the name of the one track? I remember there was a really good track on here, because there's no list on the back. I'd have to pull up the record and take a look. I mean, which actually we can do. Yeah. And all these records do come in a nice plastic sleeve as well, which is always appreciated. You don't want paper sleeves. Texas, which is a great song. Warning, if you do get this record, make sure to have it on a proper vinyl player, because the bass from the first track will make it skip. Yeah. Seth, which is a song about a racist dog. And of course, Cables, Pigeon Kill, and I'm a Mess. I'm a Mess is a great song. That's a really just all out there song. But yeah, you can see it's a nice 180 gram vinyl, all in black. Oh, it's reflective. You can see my windows. But yeah, and all of them have the same sort of layout, big black with negative space written. So yeah. Get that guy put back in the plastic. But if you are a first-time Big Black fan, I would definitely recommend starting with Bulldozer. This is classic sound Big Black, and it is one of the most readily available sounding Big Black records. Like anybody could, like any punk fan could pick this up and listen to it. It's not like how I started with Atomizer. Atomizer was the first record I heard because of course, Kerosene, but you know. Alright, let's move on to the next record, which is the first one to have the official Big Black sound of 3 musicians and a drum machine. Pat Byrne is not on this record, but it is the same musicians from before. Albini, Jeff Pezzati, and Santiago Durango. This is a great record. I don't listen to it as much as I probably should, but this has the classic Racer X on it. Yeah, Shotgun's great. This is also a very punk record. Like, it just sounds like stripped down punk, except it's got a very heavy sounding drum machine on it, which is awesome. But yeah, Deep Six is great. A lot of different Big Black tracks on this, especially like Deep Six. Ugly American is fantastic. That is like one of their most distorted, ugly sounding songs, and it just sounds fantastic, put in this sense. And then, of course, one of my favorite tracks they ever did, their cover of James Brown's The Big Payback, just one of the most heavy-hitting, just bassy, heavy songs with distorted guitars, and it completely is a different version of the original. You know, it's funny to hear, you know, a band like Big Black cover a James Brown song, but they made it work. So, yeah. I do still love this cover art. I love the whole aesthetic of this record. It's great. Very underrated. I don't hear too many people talking about Racer X. There was also another copy from the 1980s that had a different cover, where it was like a blowing up car. But this one is just, I think that picture does fit the aesthetic of this record. I think this picture fits the aesthetic of Big Black in general. Just distorted, disjointed chaos that looks almost human, or looks almost like an actual thing. You can see here, Big Black. It says Big Black Dogs. They would have a different tagline for what Big Black meant. I remember there were some t-shirts where it said Big Black Tools on it. But yeah, this is another one of the reissues. Let's see, Touch and Go right there. This is a fantastic EP, and really did set in stone what Big Black would be doing for the next few years of their career, because they wouldn't last much longer after this. I mean, Big Black was releasing a record a year, if not 2 records a year, EPs and albums. And this is one of the best things that they did, in my opinion. So before we get into the next album, or next 12-inch, I figured we'd talk about this. This is what I call the transitional record for Big Black when they changed a little bit. This is the single for the song Il Duce, which is a song about Benito Mussolini, the dictator of Italy, during the Axis powers reigns of World War II. And it's a good song, but also on the B side, there was the song Big Money, which would be on Atomizer, which is played by the bass player. What was his name? Give me 1 second. I can remember it. It's just, yeah. Dave Riley, who has since passed away. Yeah, I always remember his name, but it just skipped me today as soon as I start recording, of course, you know, it skips my brain. Yeah, Dave Riley, this was the first thing he played on, officially, for Big Black, who would replace Jeff Pezzati. The reason why, I don't know why Jeff Pezzati, I think he just left to pursue more Naked Ray Gun, which is cool, because Naked Ray Gun's amazing, so... it worked out, and Dave Riley is a fantastic bass player. He became a lot of the heart and soul of Big Black, and yeah, like I said, unfortunately, he has since passed away in 2019. But yeah, there he is. This would be the iteration of Big Black for the next few years. They wouldn't have any sort of member changes or anything like that. So yeah, really cool single. It's a 45. I believe this is an Big Black were more popular in England than they were in America for being an American band. So noticing with all of their 45s, none of them have a larger dink hole in them. They're all these smaller turntable-sized holes because that's a thing of the English market. And this one was also put out by Homestead Records. Which, yeah. Really cool single. These are really easy to find, so if you're a Big Black collector, I'd recommend picking these up. I got mine in like a lot for $20. I got both of their 45 releases outside of Heartbeat and the In My House single, which was released with the VHS tape of Pigpile. Right, next we have what I consider Big Black's crowning achievement in the album range. I know a lot of people say it's songs about, but I think this is their best thing. Atomizer. Atomizer came out in July 1st, 1986, and changed the way that we looked at electro-punk music, essentially. And I think it really is a fantastic record. And just the whole aesthetic of this album, every song is fantastic. You know, this cover is what gets a lot of people. It looks like, you know, Chuck Jones. It looks like, you know, the P-36 modulator or whatever it is from, you know, the Bugs Bunny Roadrunner movie. And it's just, you know, it's such a striking cover that you couldn't help but pick it up and listen to it. My brother showed me this album because he was a big Lamb of God fan. Lamb of God, under their other title, covered Kerosene, which is on this record. And wasn't a big fan of that version. I'm not a big Lamb of God, Burn the Priest guy, so he showed me the original and I fell in love with it. See, there's the back of the record. A little joke about Dave Riley on the back as the picture. And then we got the track listing. So, track listing for this album is Jordan, Minnesota, which is Albini's only regret about this record. He heard the story about Jordan, Minnesota, and that it was a town run by, well, for lack of a better word, pedophiles. And it was in Capstrica, but then he years later found out that it was all fake. None of it actually happened. So he does regret Jordan, Minnesota, because it's based on lies. It's not real. Never happened. Then of course there's one of my favorite songs that they ever did, if not my favorite song they ever did. It's pretty close. The song "Passing Complexion." I heard this in high school. This song, I heard this in my first year of high school. I had been listening to the rest of Big Black's discography, and then I got to the rest of Automizer, and I heard "Passing Complexion," and I listened to that song into the ground. It's still one of my favorite tracks that they've ever done. I think it's one of their best tracks they've ever done. It just sounds like complete disjointed chaos in the best sense possible. So I really do love that song. Big Money, like I said before, was the B-side for El Duce, and the first song to feature Dave Riley, as far as we know. Great track. Not one of my favorites, but still great. Then, of course, we have the classic Kerosene, which was their big hit. That's still their big hit. You know, Big Black isn't particularly popular, but they are well known in the cult scene and the underground scene of music. But Kerosene's probably their most viewed song on YouTube. I think it's sitting at like 900,000 views. It might have jumped up since then. I don't know. I don't really listen to Big Black on YouTube. But yeah, and then we've got Bad Houses, which is a great song. It's a slower song. It's just, I think it's about drug houses, if I'm correct. I think it was based on another song Albini wrote in his, there's a bunch of back catalog Big Black songs in a great compilation on YouTube actually called Rarities. Go listen to that. There's a bunch of really good hidden gem Big Black tracks like Burning Indian Wife, the cover of My House by the Mary Jane Girls. Yeah, and after that we got one of the B-side, one of my favorite songs they also ever did, Fist of Love. Really heavy hitting, just slow bass driven song. It's just insane sounding. And the lyrics are really punchy, the drums are very snappy, and the guitar just sounds as distorted as it possibly can be. Bazooka Joe, song I'm not huge on, but it's still a good song. It's just a classic Big Black song. One of my favorite tracks that they ever did, which is incredibly underrated, called Strange Things. Just an amazing, this really distorted sounding song with great sampling, these really distorted vocals that just sound like really deep yelling, and then you've got Steve Albini sort of calmly singing over it with this really distorted voice underneath, and the whole song is just fast paced and has this really tight tempo, just like that, like that, like that, and you've also got some really eerie samples in there of like banging like pipes and pans and stuff like that. It's a really interesting sounding song that's very underrated. And then finally, we actually have a pretty good live version of Cables with a different sort of chorus. Pretty good track. Pretty nice to set this off, a live version of Cables. But yeah, that is Big Black's Automizer, and this is the song that basically got them into stardom, and this is also their first official album. So yeah, this whole record is pretty renowned actually amongst like independent punk collectors and all that. I think it's a great record. Then we have this controversial thing, which I can't show you the cover of unless I want to get completely taken off YouTube. I'll just give you a hint. The name Headache really does mean it. The picture on this record is a man with his head blown up from a shotgun blast, a self-inflicted shotgun blast. But I did ask for this for Christmas one year. Which I'm not going to take out the record, but you can kind of see what I mean there. That's all I'm going to show. But I do have the booklet that came with it. There's also a poster included with this as well. This is the special edition that they put out in 1987. And I was saying that I only have one first press of Big Black. This is it. The OG release of Headache. You can see the back there with the logo. But, yeah, there's the logo again. And here's the artwork that was released on the regular version by Savage Pencil. This is great artwork, too. I would love to get a reissue of Headache just for this artwork to have on the cover. But yeah, it's a very weird book. It's just a bunch of mismangled gibberish, basically, and random stuff, meaning behind some of the songs, an advert for songs about fucking, but it's just a bunch of pictures of sex positions, a man cutting off his fingers. I can't show half of this because it's just messed up. And the whole article talking about, Richard Ramirez. This is pretty funny though. This white dot in the corner, or in the center of the page, was put there by Santiago Durango, and it says, "In an effort to involve the public with this record, I have provided this space for your creative contribution. Please stay within the borders." It's just a tiny white cube. That's pretty fun. Yeah. Whole article, 2 pages spread on Richard Ramirez, and then here's the only way you can see the track listing, which is not even fully correct. The song King Dick, that's just a shortened version of the last track on the EP. This is their shortest record that they ever did. It's only like 10 minutes long, and it is 4 tracks. But King Dick is actually the song Pete, King of All Detectives. But yeah, you got the track list, My Disco, Grinder, and Ready Men, and there was how they looked at the time. That was the band. So yeah, there's the booklet that came with it. Don't worry, we will talk about the music in a second, but we gotta go through all the bonuses that came with this record. And then we have the poster, which is quite huge. I probably won't get this thing hung up. I mean, I may get it framed and hung up. But yeah, you can see a bit of the poster there. It just says Puz. There's Santiago. There's Dave Riley. And of course, Steve Albini. And it doesn't say Big Black or anything. It just says Puds. Got me why the word Puds. I mean, I think it's like an insult my mom uses called Pudwhacker. My mom calls people Pudwhackers. So I think it maybe has something to do with that. Last thing is my last 45 7-inch Heartbeat. This is the one with the alternate artwork. Also got the things Can't Do Today and Believe. Things to Do Today and I Can't Believe. Sorry. Yeah, this is the alternate version. The original, or the basic release of this 7-inch comes with the picture is a heart with a hook through it, and the heart's like cut in half. But here it looks kind of like the guy from Courage the Cowardly Dog in the Perfect episode, Dude in the Nightmare. Also, both of the 45 and the record are on maroon vinyl, but unfortunately, when I got mine, due to the way it was stored, the B-side, I'm not sure if you can do that, has heat damage, and you can literally see the shape of the vinyl body bag that this record was placed into, so that's unfortunate, but besides that, it's fine. I mean, the song I really like on this is the actual cover of Heartbeat by Wire, so I mean, yeah, that side's okay. That side's in perfect condition, so not really a big problem. Yeah, let's get to the record itself, the actual album, what this whole thing is all about. I am going to be very careful as to not show this cover on because I can't show either side of the record, because both sides are just disgustingness. So we're just going to take out the... you can go look it up on Google. Just type in Big Black Headache and you'll see the picture. Here we have... it's in the classic paper. But yeah, this is a maroon red vinyl. It's a really nice red too. It's one of the... It doesn't sound great because vintage colored vinyl does not sound very good. Colored vinyl has gotten much better in the past few years. But, yeah. This is probably one of my favorite... Yeah, this is my favorite Big Black EP. Not my favorite record, but my favorite EP. My favorite record is Atomizer. This one is my favorite EP, even though it's their shortest. It's only 4 tracks long. But yeah, I asked for this for Christmas, and I got it. And I'm very, very grateful for that. Although, all the rest of these I bought myself. Yeah, see that there? No names of any tracks on either side. It's just the logo on both sides. But yeah. Fantastic record, really just disturbing sounding. The first track, My Disco, just sounds like distorted chaos, essentially. It sounds like the thoughts of a schizophrenic is the best way to describe it. And, yeah, Grinder and Ready Men are more traditional Big Black songs, very punky, very punchy, and up there, fast-tempoed. And then there's Pete, King of All Detectives, which is probably, next to Passing Complexion, my favorite song they ever did. It is so short and sweet. The song is only like 1.5 minutes long, but just the distortedness sound of it and how good the bass sounds and the guitar and the way Albini is just crooning out the vocals and yelling. It's just, it's perfection. It's like an epitome Big Black song to me. Every time someone says Big Black, I usually think of Pete, King of All Detectives. It's a fantastic track. And I really recommend go listen to Headache. Go listen to it. Just go listen to it. It's fantastic. It won't take that much time out of your day. It'll take 10 minutes, 10 to 12 minutes. I can't remember exactly how long this EP is. I want to say 10 minutes. And just go listen to it. You know, just go listen to it, and you know you'll be a better person for it. Make sure to carefully put this record back in. Oh, before we move on to the other 2 records, I'll put that guy back in later. I thought we'd just talk about the case that Headache comes in. It is made of actual body bag vinyl. I got mine pre-torn, but when you get it, you have to cut it open. You see someone did a bit of a hack job cutting this thing open, but Yeah, it is made of actual body bag vinyl. It's printed very nicely. Yeah. So that is actually a very, very cool release for an otherwise kind of gross record. Then we're going to discuss this real quick. This is the single that came out for Songs About Fucking, which is Big Black's magnum opus record to a lot of people. It's their best work to a lot of people. But yeah, here's the single, which is a cover of Cheap Trick's He's a Whore, which actually, let me grab the vinyl of that album real quick. I actually own this album that this is based on. See, they got it down pretty close. You got Santiago being Rick Nielsen, Steve being Robin Zander, and Dave Riley is a pretty good pass for Bunny Carlos. So, yeah, you see, they actually, yeah, they did it pretty faithfully for